All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Messenger March 4th in Manychat. My name is Toby. I'm part of the product marketing team, and I am joined today by Zhenya Zhen, product manager extraordinaire and leader on all things Messenger, as well as Will Quillen, our community czar, partner pal, and master of all customer success. So the goal for today is to take you through all of the things that you need to be aware of for the upcoming March 4th changes. I'm going to try and do that in about a half hour, and then leave some time for any questions that you guys have at the end so that we can go to more specific use cases and address those. So I'm going to do the majority of the presentation today, and Zhenya is going to keep me honest with a little more technical detail. So he'll pop in from time to time. Will's going to help field your questions, so feel free to start asking those as the presentation is going on. And we'll kind of bubble up the ones that we see most common as we get to the end of the presentation. So with that, I'm just going to get started. So first of all, what's going on? Well, there's kind of four different things that you want to be aware of. The first is the change to the 24-hour window. So whenever a subscriber interacts with you on Messenger, you can interact with them for 24 hours exactly, and then you need to follow some specific rules if you want to engage with them on Messenger afterward. The most common way you'll be doing this is through, number two, new message tags. So there are four specific use cases that Facebook approves for messaging somebody outside of 24 hours, and we'll go over each of those. But they have recently introduced a new thing called one-time notifications. So this is sort of a replacement to follow-ups that are going to work when someone specifically opts in to receive a message later. And finally, we're going to talk about SMS and email, which are some new features on Manychat. They'll help you fill in gaps where you see the places that you want to nurture, but doesn't fit exactly where Facebook allows things today. Now, the first thing we want to say is don't panic. These changes are meant to improve Messenger, right? So Facebook created these so that there would be a reduction in overall spam, keeping subscribers on the platform for longer. What that means is that your messages, being the kind, good chat marketers that you are, will stand out more. And you've also got other options in the barrel, right? SMS and email are fully functional and ready to go, and sponsored messaging is another way to reach your customers if it's really important that you get to them on Facebook Messenger. Let's talk about the 24-hour messaging window. So you can send messages for 24 hours after a subscriber interacts with your page, but you might be asking yourself, what is an interaction? Well, there's a number of spots that count. So hitting get started, sending you a message, clicking on a button that could be a menu button, so swiping or on the side menu, or a post back button. Those are the buttons that you create inside of Manychat, or clicking on a quick reply. Also, entering your bot via a growth tool opens that window. Entering your bot via a click to messenger ad opens that window, or entering your bot by clicking inside of an SMS sent from Manychat, linked to Manychat, acts as a growth tool in this case. The one thing you want to keep note of is that currently clicking a URL button does not count as an interaction. So you need to be careful about that in your planning and logic. If you want to send a message outside of 24 hours, it's going to need to be tagged. And so we've added this section to all of the Facebook message steps where you can select a specific tag or OTNs, which we'll get to in a little bit, to make sure that you can reach people. Now, there are four particular use cases that make sense here. The first is post-purchase updates. So this is transaction confirmations, shipment status, order changes, information around a particular purchase that a subscriber has already made with your business. The second is confirmed event updates, which could be location, timing, or other key information about an event that somebody has already registered for, not a future event that they have not registered for. The third is non-recurring account updates. So anything that might be sent out weekly or monthly is disqualified here. This is more for things like application status, approvals, fraud alerts, big key changes that will typically be in response to a user action or just very, very important for them to know. And finally, there is the human agent tag. So this is when you manually interact with somebody over Messenger, and this will be automatically applied when you use live chat through Manychat. So how do we protect you as of March 4th and going forward? So inside of 24 hours, we will send whatever messages makes sense, right? So it's anything that you have to someone who's interacted, we'll send it. But as soon as 24 hours hits, we are going to stop sending any message that is not tagged using one of the confirmed tags by Facebook or using a one-time notification. So we're going to prevent your page from going out of compliance for any messaging sent through us because we'll be passing the tag forward. That said, do not mistag your messages because we can't. Our system can only tell if it is or isn't tagged. So you need to make sure that the content matches the content type. If you send messages that are not the right message tag, you're risking having your page suspended or having some sort of bad effect from Facebook. To make this transition easier, we have created a compliance monitoring page. So this is a single URL that you all can use. It's manychat.com/profile/compliance-monitoring. And this will go across all of the accounts where you're associated and look at how many messages were sent in the last week or so that were outside of the 24-hour window and did not have a compliant tag or one-time notification attached. So let's actually look at how using the compliance tool works and how applying a tag works. So from inside, you're just going to click on the appropriate account and it will take you directly to a list of flows. Here you'll select the particular flow that you want to fix in the moment, and the flow checker will highlight the area that is in trouble. So we see there's no content type selected. The flow checker is going to give us a little bubble over here to identify what's going on with the flow. And if you have multiple messages inside the flow that are problematic, it'll highlight each of those. So we're going to apply the tag by just bringing this menu down and choosing the appropriate tag. Now, notably, boom, it's a message is not related to a post-purchase update, so I wouldn't publish this flow in a real situation, but just applying the tag to make sure the flow checker knows something is there. You'll see once complete, all is done, right? You can publish this flow and it will now send past 24 hours. So let's talk about outside of those use cases. So one-time notifications. This is a new thing introduced in February by Facebook with a subscriber's explicit permission. Right, you can send a single additional message outside of the 24-hour window. So there's a couple of things you want to know about how OTNs work and a couple of rules around them. So OTNs themselves, you need to ask to get an OTN, and there's a specific block inside of Manychat that you'll use for that. You can only send one message in any message step that is using an OTN tag. That's just the way that the API is supported. It can be one item, but it will support any content type. So that could be a card gallery, a video, audio. It's whatever you promised the user you can send as content. Another caveat to have is that you can sort of accumulate or save multiple OTNs. But every time you'll have to ask for one. So to be more specific, if I have someone who's going through a product catalog, I may ask them if I can remind them about several different products when they go on sale or when they're back in stock. I could accumulate a different OTN for each product. Or if someone is interested in an upcoming webinar that maybe they haven't registered for and they can't use the typical event update, I might ask if I can remind them a day before and an hour before as two separate OTN moments. Some rules around one-time notifications. So the message that you send absolutely must match what you promised the subscriber. Don't lie, right? To give the subscribers what they want, it's a bad experience for everybody. If you get a high number of reports or unsubscribes as a result of one-time notifications, Facebook will take away access to the API and you won't be able to use it anymore. You also cannot incentivize opting in. So that means that you can't say, I will give you a discount in return for sending you a message at a later date. Now, you can say, I will tell you when something is on sale. So the message that you send can have value, but you cannot incentivize acquiring the opportunity to send a message. So how do we get OTN permission? So before you even get started, you're going to need to activate it on the Facebook pages where you want to use it. So inside of your Facebook page, you're going to go into settings. And inside of settings, you're going to go over to advanced messaging. Inside of advanced messaging, you're going to scroll down to this area where you'll request access for one-time notifications, agree to the terms, and it should be granted almost immediately. If it's not, reach out to Facebook and see why, but in most cases, we're seeing everybody gets it immediately. Oh. So once you have it activated, how do you use it inside of Manychat? Well, a new block will appear inside of message steps. So when you're building a message, let's say, for example, that someone has been looking and browsing your shoe store and you want to let them know if a certain pair of shoes are going on sale later. You're going to go down to this little block in 1 moment. Sorry about the video there. OTNR requests, a one-time notification request. So this new block will let you add text, and you're going to have to put a topic here. This is how you're going to identify later in Manychat when you're using that particular one-time notification. And we'll get to that when we get to sending. You can put text here, but you cannot change the button. All one-time notifications will say notify me as the button choice. But it's very, very easy to add a topic. It's just like adding a custom field or tag. And this will get applied to a user in a similar way. And Manychat will acknowledge that they can be talked to outside of the 24-hour window when using that one-time notification. When we want to send an OTN, you can add it just like you'd add a tag. So now that we've collected the shoe sale OTN, it'll show up in the tag list just like anything else. And so for users who have this applied to their audience account, we will now send a message outside of 24 hours to that person and then consume the one-time notification. So it won't happen twice, one time. If you still want to reach many of your subscribers on Messenger, there are sponsored messages. This will require a Facebook ads account, and we recommend audiences greater than 200 subscribers. Facebook recommends audiences greater than 1,000. Something you want to know about sponsored messages. So delivery is subject to bidding and recipient limits. So any subscriber can only receive a single sponsored message a day. And that's going to be based on a bidding environment like any other advertising piece. So the way that you'll want to hedge this is bidding higher if you're having trouble with deliverability, or bidding over a longer period of time if you're having troubles with deliverability. So you can either increase the number of days that you're trying to reach somebody, or increase the amount that you're willing to pay to reach that inbox. So to make this whole process a bit easier for you, we have a section called paid messages under broadcasting to make it as similar to a regular broadcast as possible. So you're going to select a single message as the initial sponsored message, and the best way to connect it is to go into a flow that we've prepared for that advertisement. So you can see down here, sorry, I lost my mouse pointer. But underneath broadcasting here, you've got paid messages. You've got an initial message going out, and then you want to connect that into a flow that is appropriate for your post back button or response keyword, however you want to move forward. Let's talk about going omnichannel. So one way to fill in certain nurturing sequences that may no longer be valid in the current tag structure is to get your other contact information from your subscribers and deliver it to them in a new way. Manychat offers SMS and email options. So typically we're going to endorse SMS as a primary piece here over email, but they both have pros and cons. So SMS is great for time-sensitive information reminders. It has extremely high open and click-through rates. It's an awesome way to bring people back once they leave the 24-hour window. You can link it directly back into Facebook. And we also support two-way texting. So you may have some customers already that don't use Facebook at all. And texting is a way for you to reach those people in the same interactive way of Facebook Messenger, but via texting, because you can create flows inside of Manychat that work entirely by text. And we'll show you how to do that in a moment. Email is another great medium for people who either don't want to give you their phone number, if you want to have recurring content, right? So sending somebody a message on Messenger or an SMS every couple of days can get you an unsubscribe, right? They're more interruptive mediums, they get more attention. But it doesn't necessarily build brand for you if it's not immediately valuable to the person. So if you have newsletters or product updates, right, things that don't need immediate action, sometimes email is actually a better route to go, and you'll build brand with that person over time in a place where they don't mind getting some additional messages. And again, emails, you can add a button at the bottom to bring them right back into Messenger, which is a great experience if they're doing it on their phone. Now, even if Facebook was not making these changes, SMS and email have always been on our roadmap. SMS has some crazy good stats, and you should already be investing in it anyway. It's a great time to start learning about it because we got this transition, and going cross-channel and omni-channel is just a good move for any business. But some stats on SMS. 98% open rates in a lot of studies. 6 billion people by 2025, almost 5 billion today, already send and receive text messaging. That is more than there are people who use email already. Click-through rates have been recorded as high as 36%. And if you look at kind of the future body of consumers, people are going to be spending a lot of money. 75% of people under 44 actually indicate they want to receive and send text messages to a business as a way of doing business. Now let's talk about using SMS and email in Manychat. There's a couple steps. First, you're going to want to activate it. So SMS is currently available in the United States and Canada. We are working on the United Kingdom, Australia, Mexico, and Brazil. You're going to want to get that contact information, right? So there's a couple of ways. We have user input blocks, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with already. There's a particular setup using system fields, and we'll go through that in just a sec. If you already have phone numbers and email addresses as custom fields from your prior campaigns, you can actually transfer those to system fields inside of Manychat. And finally, if you already have a list of people who have given you consent, who have given you their contact information, you can import directly into Manychat in the Audience tab. Now, an important thing for both email and SMS is to get consent. So after you get that contact information, we recommend a double opt-in. That means repeating to the customer what you're going to send them and proactively saying, hey, can I send you marketing, sales, and account information over this medium? Is it okay? And making sure that they have an option to opt out. This is just best practice. It's the right thing to do for your subscribers, and it's regulatorily more safe, right? Once you have those things, you can get sending. So SMS is built in for broadcasts, sequences, and other formats of smart nurturing using rules, smart delays, and etc. Let's get into activating it though. So inside of Manychat, you've probably noticed a couple of additional channels pop up in your dashboard. And we make it fairly simple to get to the settings here. Click on Connect and just flip one of these toggles. In emails, you'll want to set up your contact information, right? So identify your organization and your address. This is part of being CAN-SPAM compliant. People need to know who you are and where emails are coming from. And then under SMS, we'll give you some other details like the list of phone numbers that you have. This one is blank because this account has not yet sent a text message, but we assign you a number of phone numbers to maximize deliverability. Any of those phone numbers can receive inbound text messages. So let's talk about getting consent. So here we have a flow that's configured around using a user input block to get consent if someone determines that, hey, I'd like to be contacted by phone. So say they're having a good time with you and you're going to deliver a piece of content or a coupon. You get to this moment where you say, we're so excited that you want to hear from us more regularly. How would you prefer to get contacted? So let's just take this SMS path for the time being and follow through. So what I like to do is actually identify their contact preference as another way of filtering. Sometimes they'll have more than one format of contact information for someone. So it's better to also signify that they prefer a particular method to be contacted. Once they've determined that that's the way they want to be talked to, you're going to request their number using a user input. The reply type will want to be phone in this case. And there's a toggle here called Save Phone to System Field. And this is what's going to make it actually able to send text messages through Manychat. So make sure that this toggle is on. Following up on that, it's good to have this second piece, this double opt-in of, thank you. By clicking I agree, you opt in to receive personal auto dial. We have a number of templates that we can send your way. They're in our support articles and on our blog on using the kind of legalese language here to make sure that they understand what they're agreeing to. And after this double opt-in is where I would typically put an SMS opt-in step, right? And you can do that by going into an action block, scrolling down to the bottom here and getting to this SMS opt-in. Once that's set, you'll be able to send text messages to people. And so to kind of continue from the flow where we were before, now we want to create or connect a text message. So you can make a text message just as easily as any other step in Manychat. Connect it as the next piece, right? And put in your text. So in terms of linking and logic, we've got this link to another step option. We also have user replies. So in this, I'm asking a question. Do you have any other questions that you'd like? In this case, I'm asking for a two-way texting scenario where they say Y for yes or N for no, and we're going to set up a user reply for each of those. So Y will connect to one message, and N will connect to another message. Now you'll notice here there's also a fallback value. So this works like a default reply, but for a particular text message. So if they respond with something that doesn't already have a user reply associated, you can have a default direction. This might be automatically no, automatically yes, or something that maybe rephrases the question, says, sorry, I don't understand that. Could you respond with Y or N? I have pop this back a sec, one moment. All right. So once you have that, just like any other message step, you'll connect this is acting as a button, right? But will in real world just be typing Y and hitting enter to another message. In this case, we're going to say, hey, we're happy to help, give you more information. It's a little faster for us to reply on Messenger. And so in this case, we'll actually use a link to another step to send them back into Messenger and reopen that 24-hour messaging window. So you can have slightly more interactive communications that use buttons again. And really connecting between the mediums is that easy in Manychat. You could also use an email step in this instance where you send an email, and if there's an interactive component, you bring them right back into Messenger and continue that discussion using the growth tool. So say you've got contact information across a number of different subscribers and you want to send them all that same information, but you don't want to make sure you get them on wherever they're relevant. That could be on Messenger if they're eligible, that could be on SMS if you have it, that could be on email. Well, we actually created a tool for this called multi-channel broadcasting, where when you create a new broadcast, you can select it and we'll pre-populate the logic. The way that we originally constructed this was to make sure you spend the least amount of money sending messages. So our first preference is if they are inside the messaging window. Our second is email, and our third is SMS. But you may find, based upon some of the SMS stats I was quoting earlier, that text messaging is a more effective way for you to do business. So you can easily click into the condition block and actually reorder these things. So we'll click in and we'll grab this little slider bar here, and we can move those conditions up and down to determine where we want and what order we want to contact people in. And with that, you will automatically send to the widest possible audience on the mediums that you have them on. That's it in terms of information that you really need to have to be prepared. There is still our Facebook 2020 guide, so it's very, very detailed. If you have more questions outside of this call, head over to there. But let's talk about the new game plan for going forward after March 4th. So Messenger's not gone. It is still a fantastic medium. So it's amazing for new customer acquisition because of its connections to Facebook ads, the huge variety of growth tools, how easy it is to collect contact information and kind of start your customer journey. It's also very useful for direct response sales and product discovery, card galleries, videos, providing extra context. Any rich media experience is going to be best on Messenger. And of course, anytime you have tag compliant messaging, Messenger is a free way of contacting your customers and getting a lot of engagement and attention. That said, SMS is still fantastic. For any of your customers that are either not Facebook users or don't use Facebook that often, maybe they don't have notifications turned on, you may find substantially higher interaction rates just from customers who don't have Messenger on their phone normally, right? It's great for re-engaging people beyond that 24-hour window, and especially on time-sensitive content or reminders, flash sales, coupons. With text messaging, you want to deliver a lot of value because you are interrupting their day, but the level of interaction you'll get on the other side of that is fantastic. And remember, you can have two-way experiences entirely on text. You don't need to bring them back to Messenger if it's more convenient for your customer. And again, if they do come through to Messenger, that reopens the 24-hour window, so you have a lot more time to engage with them again. And email is, again, for recurring content. Does not need to be as interruptive. It's more about building rapport with your subscribers, longer formats, maybe big pictures and that kind of thing. And if you want to add an interactive element, you can link it right back into Manychat, back into Messenger. So combining these mediums going forward is where you're going to see success. And speaking of success, let's just take a quick look at two success stories that have recently come through the Manychat blog. You'll be able to find them there, right? And these are entirely compliant use cases. So first is the Pearl source. This is what I was talking about before with the product discovery, click to Messenger, right? So if you are an e-commerce person or you have an audience who is entering that ready to buy mode, using a Facebook ad and connecting to a flow can be very, very effective. In the case of the Pearl source, right, they had an advertisement with an immediate incentive to interact where they were going to give a coupon. They follow up on that coupon with a way of getting product discovery. Maybe that's their options here are check bestsellers, go to the website, or ask a question. And when people wanted to, they also had a handoff to live chat. So a concierge service. This is where Manychat's live chat features really shine in combining Messenger and SMS. If you had both flows going at the same time, you can have a single area where all of your live chat agents can interact with people who are looking at through your product catalog. What we're seeing here is coming from the check bestsellers. And then you can look inside of each category and surprise me or ask that expert. That's the handoff. And so at the end of this campaign, they were able to acquire almost 600 new subscribers. 254 of them redeemed offers for $64,000 in additional revenue at a 12x return on ad spend. So extremely effective way of acquiring a new customer, incentivizing them to engage with your brand, helping them discover the product that's right for them, building a relationship on live chat if that's what they need, and getting to the sale. And you can see more about that on our blog at /blog the Pearl source. To go another direction, let's talk about Dawn's food cart in St. Louis. You guys may be familiar with Mackenzie Lieberman. She actually helped with this particular campaign. She's very active on the Manychat community. And we've got a blog case study here. He saw this upcoming change and wanted to make sure that he was prepared for going from messenger broadcasting to text broadcasting. He was concerned about this, but actually had even better results with SMS than he did with his messenger before. So the way he made this transition was he would boost his social posts talking about the food cart, where he was going to be in the next couple of weeks. and he would advertise coupons for people who commented. This is the comments growth tool that would open a conversation. That conversation would see how many comments they've had before, how much they've interacted with him, and grant different coupons for different people. So everything from a couple bucks off to a BOGO. This is a pretty cool and intricate campaign. To get the coupon, every person had to give their phone number and email address and consent to be messaged. So it would be delivered through a text message. And now, once he's gathered all of this data, he's got that rich data from Facebook, he knows much more about them, and he can segment that. But then he sends broadcasts through text message to announce what cities or parts of town he would be in. And as a result, he saw 90% open rates. He saw a $7,000 increase in monthly sales, which was 30% increase in his total revenue. And he's gotten a 5x return on ad spend so far, right? The cool thing about getting contact information is that that list continues to grow. So as this campaign moves forward, you'll see that return increase because the cost of a text message is so tiny compared to the additional business that he's receiving every day. Learn more about this at the very uniquely named case study SMS on our blog. And with that, we will move into questions. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Will in terms of surfacing what are people talking about.
No, we got lots of questions. I think a good first question I saw is, can we go over what the tag other means for a tag under message tags? It's a good first general question, I think.
Yeah, and so Jenya, keep me honest here, but the other tag is just something that you'll need to put on any message that is sent outside of 24 hours in order for Manychat, to communicate to Manychat that it is tagged in the first place. Other is typically reserved for promotional messaging and will typically not be sent outside of 24 hours. Jenya, are there any particular use cases for the other tag that would make it outside of the window?
Yeah, that's basically correct. So you use the label other to communicate to Manychat that you understand that the message that you intend to send outside 24 hours doesn't fall to any other category. So there's no tag for it and no available one-time notification token to send it to any of your existing subscribers. So in that case, the only option to market is with the label other, with the content type called other, in order to not get the flow checker notification that you have something that is going to be sent outside 24 hours unmarked.
Gotcha. But Jenya, we won't send anything tagged other outside of 24 hours, right? Because we're essentially defining it as not in any known use case.
Oh yes, sure. So Manychat won't send anything labeled with the tag other if the subscriber is not within 24 hours. It just could be the case that even though the design of the particular flow could be like this: so send message, wait 24 hours, then send another message. Because the flow checker works with the context of the current flow, we actually don't know if you have any other automation in place that put the subscriber back in 24-hour window. Probably you did some automation that refreshes the 24-hour messaging window, but if not, if this particular given flow is the only automation you have and the message that is going to be sent outside 24 hours doesn't have any tag that fits or one-time notification token, your only option is to label it with other to not get any flow checker warnings, but it will not be actually delivered because there is no Facebook tag called other. It's just something we made to pass validation.
Yes. Okay. So the times where you would, in most cases, if there is no available tag, you should reformat the flow so that you're either using a one-time notification, using an appropriate tag, or subbing in an email or SMS block. You would use the other tag when there are other parts of your bot or flow that may re-engage a subscriber, and so they may still be inside that 24-hour window, but our flow checker can't tell because it's only inside of that one flow. So this is when you have an expectation of someone re-entering that 24-hour window, and you're using logic that might send it outside of that.
Yeah.
Cool. And following up on that, there are some questions about tagging within the 24-hour window, if it's necessary or not to tag messages that fall actually in line with the message. So growth tools, opt-in messages, welcome messages, etc.
So Jenna, my understanding is that we don't need to tag messages that are almost always going to be inside of the 24-hour window. If it's connected directly to a growth tool and that's the only way to get there, or if it's connected to an interaction, right? Any of those interactions, and it's the only way to get there, you won't need to tag it because it will always be sent inside of 24, and it will pass validation.
Yes, that's correct. So anything that is by design within 24-hour messaging window doesn't need to be tagged.
Awesome. Following up on tags, there's some questions about where the confirmed event reminder can be used. So people are asking about, can it be used for if someone on a common growth tool says they want to receive a reminder about Facebook Lives, or can they use a, what's another one? Just there's multiple examples. About
so confirmed is the point here. So, you know, the how you define confirmed is going to be a little bit of a gray area. But if someone has registered, so they have indicated in one way or another that yes, I would like to attend this event, then the confirmed event should be fine. If they have not registered in some shape or form, you'd want them to use a one-time notification in this scenario. So you're correct in that there's a little bit of a gray area here. Facebook hasn't defined what is a valid confirmed event, right? What a valid registration means.
And how they're going to enforce it.
But you know, it's better safe than sorry. Make sure that there's at least a message history that you could point to that says, hey, this person clicked, yes, I want to attend, please remind me, right? You know, make it very clear in the chat history of the person that they are registering for an event and that they will be contacted about it.
Awesome. A question is about the OTN. Is it recurring where you can request it once, it can be used over and over again, or is it a one-time? You have to request it every single time. Every time.
So a one-time notification, it works on a token system. So when someone clicks, yes, remind me, they get one token and it is spent when you send them a message using that topic or OTN down the line. So in order to send somebody multiple reminders, you will need to send them multiple requests to remind. You know, what I was saying before, you might say, hey, would you like a reminder a day before? Yes. Would you also like a reminder an hour before? Yes. That gives you 2 tokens for 2 moments.
Easy enough. Let's see some more questions. There are some questions about the flow checker, the compliance checker chart, and how often it's updated. Because some people are saying they're seeing a tag, but it's not updating. So what's going on there?
Yes, so there is a lag time between our alert system and your bot. It won't be instantaneous. Zhenya, is it a day or a week right now?
When people mentioned the flow checker or any validation that we have in place, I always want to distinguish between 3 things. So the first thing is the dashboard notification banner that we have, this little red banner on the dashboard that says you have potentially uncompliant content. Then we have the list of particular flows that within which the non-compliance sending occurred. And then we have the flow checker, which is a little notification area that can be called by pressing the heart icon in the flow builder itself. Oh, and then there's also the page that lists all accounts that that's yes, the message window compliance monitoring. So I'm assuming that the question was about the data.
They're still getting alerts and they think they fixed it. So the question is, so like we see here on the compliance monitoring, right, it's an overview of the prior week.
Got it.
Was there anything said? So does this get updated daily for the compliance monitoring level, for the individual bot level, and for the on-flow level? What is, how fast should they know? I know that on-flow compliance checker will say good, but these other warnings are updated at a interval.
Sure. First of all, if we consider messaging window compliance monitoring on the account level and on the flow level, we need to understand that the list here is just a history of what had happened during the past 7 days. So when it gets updated, it will not, it gets updated once per 24 hours, but the expectation of seeing this history getting empty is not correct. So this is history and nothing will disappear from it. So the only way for you to understand that there is no problems left is to see at the last column called last sending. If the last sending has occurred longer period ago than was your latest fixed, that means probably you really fixed the issue. If you fixed, for example, on this page, the last sending column says 4 days ago. And if the last sending occurred 4 days ago and your last edit of the flow that caused this sending was 3 days ago, and nothing has happened afterwards, so no sending happened after the moment of your last editing, it means you're most likely fixed the issue.
Okay. What is the latest after they've fixed all of their flows that they will still get alerted by our email and dashboard system? I think it's, this question might be more geared towards when will Manychat stop harassing me?
Got it. So the email notifications, they consider a 3-day period. So if you can receive the email within the span of 3 days, 2 days after you fix.
Okay, and then the dashboard notification, how quickly does that go away?
Notification will disappear after 24 hours of 24 hours after your last fix, provided there was no other non-compliant sendings. So.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Chenya. So the summary here is we're going to bug you for up to 3 days after you fix everything.
Yes, that's basically correct.
Perfect. All right. I think we have some questions regarding kind of sending out multi-channel broadcasts. Is the only way to send out a multi-channel broadcast containing a promotion, messenger, SMS, and email to select promotional content? I'm a little confused as the condition is set so only users within 24 hours window receive the Facebook Messenger. How will that work within the Manychat system currently with multi-channel broadcasting?
So let me rephrase and make sure I'm getting this right. So they want to send out a promotional broadcast to as many people as possible. So typically that's going, unless you're using a one-time notification, right? Which you can.
Or promotional via the promotional broadcasts.
Sponsored messages or
no,
broadcasts?
The 24-hour broadcast window, like the promotional messages.
Yes. So inside Let's get this logic up. So the base logic here, and you can update this condition with whatever works for you. We just built this to make it easy. So the deference is first, if somebody is within the 24-hour window, so they're eligible for promotional messaging, that's where it's going to get sent. If they are not, it will then look to check if they have email and they've opted in to receive it, and then it will send it there. If they are not, it will then look for if they have a phone number in this as a system field, and if they've opted in to receive SMS, then it will send it there. You can reorder these. You can change these conditions as necessary. We put this as the basis because Manychat will not send promotional content tagged as other or promotional outside of a 24-hour window. So it's better to make sure that that's already in your logic, right? So that you're at least aware of how that's being sent, and then you can actually move them into these secondary and tertiary conditions, right? If you didn't do that, if you just tried to send it on its own, they might not be sent down the logic path. They might just not receive the message. So we do this as a way of making sure that everyone receives on the best medium or the most compliant medium where they have opted in to talk to you. Is that answering the question well?
I believe so. I think there's probably some confusion with multi-channel broadcasting in terms of what label you should use for them in terms of promotional, subscription.
Is it the settings that's so that like they're
Yeah. I think I have the feeling that the question was actually about the settings inside the broadcast.
okay? So let's talk about the settings tab here.
Yeah.
Non-promotional. So Zhenya, let's educate me.
Okay. So the trick is here is that people probably see the first word, which is non-promotional, and then they just kind of stop reading. But the first option is actually either non-promotional or mixed content, which means by mixed content, we mean that your broadcast contains multiple messages. Some of them might be non-promotional and some of them are promotional. So this option should be selected in this particular case. So if you have mixed content, it means that you indicate that Manychat should consider the content types that you specified for each message step. And that's what we will do. So if you select promotional content only, we will just ignore message tags and we will solve that by filtering the audience only to those people who are eligible for promotional content, which is people who are within 24-hour messaging window. So this setting is made to enable quick setting. Is basically the same as it acts the same. The promotional content only option is acting the same as if you would set the messaging segment filter in the audience settings, and as if you've set it up to within 24-hour messaging window. So
gotcha. So it's just like if we're in terms, it's creating the same logic as this conditional block right here. Second on promotional. So we kind of built it preemptive. Now, when would it be useful to have a mixed content thing? When are you going to apply messages? Perhaps you know that you're sending something promotional, but you also want to talk to customers who are not in the promotional window and you don't have the contact information for. So you want to send them something that actually matches a tag, or you want to use a one-time notification, right? Then you might put your message as last in the order. Right? And so in that case, you'd say, you might move this to, instead of being inside 24 hours, you just have it as the final condition, and then you apply a one-time notification. Burn that if you don't already have their email and already have their SMS. So there's particular scenarios where you'd want to identify that you're using mixed content, And I think it's going to be more relevant as you get more acquainted with one-time notifications.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question.
Kind of about smart delays, about how they're going to be used with, we didn't really go over them a lot. So just kind of, should they be labeled if they're over 24 hours, kind of what should be the process with 24-hour smart delays?
Yeah, so anything, a 24-hour or at risk of being 24-hour smart delays. So anything connected to a rule, for example, you're going to want to use message tags to make sure. Because Manychat's going to block it if it happens to go outside of 24 hours. So in this case, you would be connecting to an OTN, or if it is a legitimate reminder, like a confirmed event reminder, just make sure that the following message is tagged. For a lot of these fringe use cases and different kind of logic questions, I strongly recommend you guys go to our guide on the blog. Will, can you push that into the chat for everybody? Just the 2020 full set. It's got a giant cheat sheet. You can go directly to the section that's relevant to you, or you can read the small book that Zhenya and I wrote. So, okay.
Yeah, let me post that in 1 second. Just to go over anything, just some housekeeping chores about SMS and email, just about what the timeline is, if we can do anything about, there's some questions about Europe, UK, Australia. If there's anything that we can give anyone, that would be great.
Yeah, to be real, we are trying our best to get into these additional markets. There are unfortunately some regulatory and telecom barriers that we have to overcome. And it just takes time. Where the product team, we hear you, we know you want to be part of it. We're behind texting and email. We think it's awesome. So we are doing our very best to get it out, and we'll let everybody know as soon as we can. You'll receive one of the 10,000 messages from me in your in-apps at the country when it is released. So.
And I think with that, we're going to wrap things up. There are some questions left, but most of them are pretty specific to use cases and anything like that. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to write to us. We'll be happy to answer via email. Otherwise, you can ask in our community, our Facebook Manychat community. Keep an eye out for any in-app and email product updates that we're going to be sending you over the course. There's a lot of really good YouTube videos. There's a lot of good just guides in general on our blog, on our YouTube channel. So there's a lot of really good places to knowledge hubs for you as kind of the way to move forward with messenger marketing and how to use Manychat kind of going forward and how to be successful. So I just recommend you guys to check everything out, and as Toby mentioned earlier, is just not to panic is the biggest thing, because it is a big change and we understand it, and we are here with you, and we're going to support you as best as we can. So Toby, any last words?
Guys, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for being our customers. The future is exciting, even if it is scary. Don't panic, it will be fine. I think we're going to probably post this one on the community later. We'll do like a quick cut to make sure everything's up to snuff. So if you guys do still have questions, check out the Manychat Facebook community where we'll have this posted up.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.